Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And as always, we're going to date stamp this. It's year 4, blog 7, or in legacy numbers, blog 163. And it's dated 6th of April, 2025. And what I usually do is I look out the window, and it's been a lovely sunny day today, and it's actually been a very sunny week. Can't complain about the weather, really. It's been a bit chilly, but then again, my God, we're in the first week of April. So usually I start off with the news, but I just give you a little bit of a heads up on what my week's been like, and I've been using sort of like expletives, different ones if I can for the week, but I'm going back to the bad to challenging this week. As you know, my mother is not in a good way. I've still got the panic alarm on so that she can call me, and I'm waiting for the occupational health to do their second visit. They've been already this morning at 10 to 8 this morning. And you know, it started off bad, and it sort of like ended up sort of just challenging to okay. Maybe that's the turning point. Let's hope. But we'll get the news out the way, I think, first. Yes, we'll get the news out the way. So it's been I should think of a huge amount of news this week. You know, like last week it was all bad, and I don't see any change really for this one. But we start off with the war, as we do in Ukraine each week. And this one starts off with Poland scrambles warplanes after all of Ukraine was under a Russian missile attack threat. Polish and Allied aircraft were activated to ensure the safety of Polish airspace after Russia launched airstrikes threatening far western Ukraine. The operational command of Poland armed forces is in that area. President Zelensky criticised support as his hometown was targeted days previous, killing 18. He said the war must end. We must not be afraid to pressure the one who continues the war and ignore proposals and who ignores proposals to end it. So what he was basically saying is it's Putin that's ignoring all the proposals. He's now targeting even further west from Russia to the far side of Ukraine, which then hits the Polish border, and therefore Poland was on high alert. Yeah, what can you say? I mean, he did say that the war would continue while we're looking for a ceasefire. And how many weeks now have we been waiting for this? My God, we just want the war to end. If I was to continue to read the news, it would all be about deaths, missile attacks, etc., etc. And while this is all going on, Trump is in the news for other reasons. So we'll get to that point in just a moment. So that was the war. And then we've got UK and the world. So we start off with Keir Starmer calls for calm after Trump announces world tariff levies on trade. The UK was assigned 10% tariff on trade this week. So yes, so where all of this war is going on, looking for ceasefires and an end, Trump is there with his tariffs, wanting to make America great again. Fair dues to him. Wants to make America great. We want to make Britain great. But we also have to look at coalitions and collaborations and the rest of it. He decides to slam world tariffs. And to be quite honest, the whole markets and stock shares and everything have all crashed. Across the board. A lot of scares cause that. they do generally stabilize. We will see. I don't see myself tariffs working. You know, we want a trade deal. The rest of the world want a trade deal. We always want to go with the biggest landmass, the biggest industry, the biggest outgoings. America, Russia, China, they're all huge compared to us. And Europe is fragmented. You can put its biggest clump together as being the European Union, but Trump will always consider it to be a fragmented, small, hardly a significance to him. So that was that part of the news. In electronic news, Nintendo announced the Switch 2 console in a major presentation. And most of the gaming community, and I do say most of the gaming community balk at the game price hike. Yes. So this was all over the news. I mean, there was this big, long presentation. It started off with a demonstration of Mario Kart. It went into the pros of what the new Nintendo Switch console is, what you're expecting to get. It then demonstrated a load of other games done from third parties. That's to show just how much support it's got. And it ended, and then a lot of people were going, well, it told me everything other than the price. What's the price of the damn thing? And it wasn't too long before the websites came up and everybody went, oh my word. But you see, I don't know if it's my age. I tend to find I don't balk at things. It's like, oh, is that where they're going, is it? I used to do it when I was younger because it was like, where am I going to get that money from? Less so these days. Less committed as well to whether I want to get one day one or not. Even though I know eventually I'll have one. It's just, to me, it's less important now with other things going on in my life. But just to put things in perspective, this console is like $450. We don't know quite what the price will be UK, whether it'll be pound for dollar, which it generally has been for quite some time now. But it was you get a pack. You can do a pack-in type version of it. $500 will get you Mario Kart World, which is the flagship title to go out with the console on day one, which makes the game $50. But actually, they released the prices of the games. The digital copy of that game is actually $80, and if you want a physical copy, it's $90. Putting pure speculation again out there on the next big game release across multi-platform, which is Grand Theft Auto, the new Grand Theft Auto expected this year. And they're saying it's going to be their first $100 game. And, you know, I've always looked at it like this. If you look at the history of Nintendo, they always made a loss on their hardware. They always used to bring out their game console at a low price and put the smack-damn tariff, if you want to call it that, price on the software in a way that would recoup their losses, because everything is licensed through Nintendo. And that's worked for them. It seems very much this time it's more we're doing it on the hardware and the software. So I think that the price of the console is, well, I was expecting, actually, I'll tell you my expectations. I expected the machine to be $399. I thought that with the world economy as it is, they would recognize that if you price it in the same sort of category as a high-end non-hybrid machine like the PS5 and the Xbox One, you know, then then basically what you're saying is there is no now dividing margin. And a hybrid is still a hybrid. It's still a mix and mash of two, and it's not a hardware powerhouse. But it's the games. Now, I found it always weird why a couple of years ago when I looked at how much games were on, say, the PlayStation 5 network, that the digital editions cost more than the physical, and that's very true. I saw one game, it was $59.99, but if I was to go into game, I could get it for $49.99 in physical format, and I was going, hey? I suppose it makes perfect sense, actually, if you think about it, though. They can't discount a physical price. Once it's out there, it's down to the retailers and what they want to do with it. You have a much stronger hold over your digital intellectual property. If you buy it from their own shop, they can discount it whenever they want, which means that it could be $80 one week and it could be 50% off the next. And of course, that will piss off all the people that bought it the week before when it was full price. But, you know, like I say, usually there's a bit of a warning for that. So, you know, I didn't balk at it, but I did go, good luck, Nintendo, with that. And it does seem that all the youngsters, you know, all the people with the young YouTube channels, all of those, they were all up in arms. And I totally get it. You know, I mean, that's a heck of a lot of your wages from, you know, your hard-earned cash to play a racing game. Now, there's certain, you know, people as well that going, here's Nintendo playing it safe. Their console is coming out with Mario Kart as their flagship. Now, I was actually expecting a Mario World type game to come out. Mario in a platform game I've always looked at as being their flagship game to come out on day one. This time it's Kart. It makes sense with Mario Kart 8 probably selling more than the last Mario Odyssey, I think it was, that with the Switch 2. But I actually bought my Switch for the Mario game, not the Kart game. It's always been Mario, then Zelda, then Kart for me. Kart being the third one. Now, what is there extra in this Mario Kart that warrants that price? Well, they've put out there that it's this gen visuals and sound, speed increased, and it's open world. So in other words, it's like Forza. Mario Kart has always been around about tracks, you know, and you learn the tracks. Now you can drive your vehicle between tracks, so across country to get to your next track. Well, whoopee woo. That's not exactly like new, is it? It's new for Nintendo. It's not new for the world. That's been around for donkeys. So yeah, I don't see the innovation anymore for Nintendo too much. It's nice that the controllers are magnetic. It's nice that they have mouse capability. I don't like a lot of the stuff that's in the package that's coming out. Apparently, you can put your certain Switch 1 games into your Switch 2 console. And if you want them to look different to Switch 1, you have to pay for a high-res pack. Now, I think that's the next thing of buying content crap that I don't like. So there you are. You've bought this game. You've played it on your Switch. You still think it's your favourite game. You want to put it into your Switch 2 console. In fact, you've sold your Switch 1 to pay for the Switch 2, but you've still got some games that you've kept behind. You stick it in and you can play it just like it was. But if you want to make it look next-gen visual-wise, you can do that if you give them more moolah. I mean, it should be a free patch. Even PlayStation didn't go too much down that route. You put in No Man's Sky from your PS4 into the PS5. It was a free patch. There you are, bang. And it added that extra finesse. It's sort of like a thank you for paying all that money for the console, really. So yeah, a lot not to like, a lot for me to talk about there when it was really just a news item. It came as no real surprise to me. It was sort of, for me, it was like watching somebody throw a grenade into a crowd and then watching the ripple, the explosion ripple, and sort of standing back and going, let's see what the community makes about this. And that's pretty much what I did. Maybe if I didn't have so many of my own sort of like issues that I'm dealing with, I would have more a reaction. But nah, not really. Continuing with the news then. I'd love to hear your thoughts, by the way, on the Nintendo thing. The other that was in the news was Labour MP Dan Norris last night was arrested on suspicion of child sex offences and rape. Now, I just put this in here because A, it is news, but B, it goes back to they must be pretty sure, or should I say, I hope they're pretty sure, that they know what's going on in relation to this case. Because I've always gone along the lines of innocent until proven guilty. If you put something out in the media, you can hinder a case quite badly. If this person is guilty, throw the whole book at him. If he's not, benefit of the doubt and all of the rest of the stuff. I hope, therefore, that by announcing it in the media or the media announcing it, they don't hinder this case. That's how I look at it. And people that do this, child sex offences and all of this rape business, I believe they should get all that they deserve. But I also don't want to condemn someone where it's all just wrong. It was all speculation. But he's been arrested. So I take it, there's a pretty much of a damning case on this. And the last bit in the news is a rest in peace again. My childhood diminishes again, this time from a much younger actor. So more sort of my age, obviously, a bit older. And that's Val Kilmer, who died at the age of 65. And he died on the 1st of April, 2025. So April Fool's Day. But it was no April Fool's joke for this one. He died of pneumonia. And we knew he'd been unwell for a long time. He'd had 2 tracheometries for throat problems. I think it was throat cancer it was diagnosed as. And it's why, one of the reasons why is one of his last movies, which was Maverick, the follow-up to Top Gun, he didn't speak. But so many good films from Val Kilmer. I mean, Top Gun, Tombstone, and Tombstone's out on Steelbook this month. So it's a very bittersweet when that comes through the post. Heat, Willow. I know he played. He played in the film The Doors. The main singer, and of course Batman Forever. I remember going to the States when Batman Forever had only been out a week, and his face was all over the billboards in Florida, I think it was. Yeah, it was Florida at that time. It was my second visit to Florida. His face was everywhere. The Laserdisc was announced that week. Oh yeah, it was I mean, you couldn't move without seeing him. And he's one of those actors that I like him in certain films, don't like him in others. So he's definitely not my quintessential actor, but still too much quality over humdrum is what I usually say, and always sad to hear of a death. So yeah, not a good week. Pretty poor, isn't it? And that then moves a little bit actually into my territory, which is how I've been coping and how my mother's been coping. Must excuse me because my throat was drying, and that's why. Well, that, along with my brain in trying to remember names, is sort of like causing me a few issues at the moment. Got so many things going on in my head, like, or whether I should go now and check my mum right now and all of that. I'm sort of like playing that sort of game. But let's talk about the week, shall we? And I said right at the beginning, bad to challenging to norm, possibly. And that's because after the blog last week, my mother and I had a sort of like okay-ish afternoon, but she started to have these stomach cramps again. Now I took it was just those STI tablets that was causing so much of a problem last week, but they subsided a little bit, and the occupational health nurse came in the evening, and she helped me get my mum into bed, and it sort of like ended that sort of weekend. It was one of those weekends where I was sort of like by myself, looking after my mum. There was no one else to help me, and I was just tired, and I was glad to get to bed, to be quite honest. And I woke up Monday morning. The occupational health nurse came in, knocked on my door, and she advised me that my mum was on the floor. She'd fell out of bed. So this is the second time this has occurred. This time it was a totally different effect on me. It was 999, instantly phoned 999. And the emergency crew were here very, very quickly Monday morning. The occupational health nurse and I were observing pretty much all the way along. The bed was moved totally out the way. A flat stretcher bed was brought in. Straps were put around my mum's neck to keep her neck and body totally stiff in case of any broken bones. They did ECGs and stuff like they normally do. And I then, just like normal, was texting everybody who I knew, my family-wise, including my sister, who at that time wasn't really in a talkative position with me. And I went along with the ambulance, leaving my work laptop still logged in, and them not knowing what's going on. So I ended up at the hospital. They told me to sit down. They wheeled my mum in, all to do with x-rays. That was the first thing that needed to be done. And, an hour or so in, I was asked to go in. They'd wheeled my mum into the A&E Bay 11. She still had that neck thing on, and they explained to me that the blood work had been done, the ECG and everything had been done, and they were waiting for the queue to diminish for the x-rays that morning. My mum told me that she needed the nurse to help to do the womensy things. So I had to leave again after only like 5 or 10 minutes of being next to my mum. They sorted all that out very, very quickly. And while waiting for the x-ray, my sister turned up. I tried to explain to my sister what was going on. I don't know whether she was listening to me at that point. I'm sure my mum oblivious to all of that going on, and we kept it that way while we were at the hospital. And she finally had her scan. My sister and I left to our own devices, hardly speaking to each other. To be expected, as if you, just like I say, listen to the last blog. And they wheeled her back, and the good news was no broken bones, no real strains, but deep bruising, to be expected. And he asked us questions about the bed again, and I did tell them that the hospital wouldn't give us a bed. There is no wheels on this bed, but it is on a tiled floor, but it's on partially a carpet because we bought a rug. We had a rug, a big rug, but it didn't help in the fact that if you roll over one side of the bed, like a 6 or 7 stone person rolling to the opposite side of the bed is going to push the bed the opposite side if it's on tile. So they came up with a solution of this sort of like red rubber tape stuff, because what they won't do, they won't release your mum back into your house unless they know it's safe to do so. So we got a number of things sorted out while in the hospital. Number one, I ordered a chair, a sort of a better chair. So that was coming in the next couple of days. The second one was my argument about the bed. And they said that they'd get an occupational therapist out to the house to look. But they'd already come up with a solution of this red tape, and they were happy to release my mother back home with just this red rubber stuff. Now, it's shiny on one side and dull on the other. And one side is sticky. And basically you put it down, you put the bed on top of it, and that's supposed to stop it from slipping. Of course it doesn't. Absolutely useless stuff. So as soon as I got home, I ordered some rug anti-slip pads, and continued as I left the hospital to explain to them, we need a bed. It's pretty obvious to us. You need a bed with brakes. Those foot brakes, and that it was now becoming too important for them to ignore. So anyway, my mum came home, my sister came home, I came home. We made her comfortable. We got her something to eat, a cup of tea, some biscuits. My sister and I tried to clear the air, semi-cleared the air, I would say, by the end of Monday. My sister wouldn't apologise for anything. She said she was totally in the right. I said, and this is where I disagreed with her, leaving me not knowing what's going on with you not answering your text messages means that my sister didn't really care about my mother, and I totally still agree with that. If you have an argument, two siblings have an argument, you've got to put one argument aside to look after the best health of your mum. Now, I'd kept sending text messages to give news to my sister, but she ignored them. So when I told them that the paramedics turned up on Sunday night and you don't get a text back, then you have to think to yourself, you must be either on block or you don't care. And if you get therefore to the point where it takes your mum going into hospital for her to come out, then you got to look at it and go, you really wanted to punish me, but you also wanted to punish mum. And I will always look at it like that. But by the end of the week, this is redundant stuff, because things work themselves out as they always do, and we're on much better terms now. But I am the first, and I always say this, I'm the first to put my hands up and say I am not perfect. I am usually the first to say sorry in things. And like I say, we had a big blow up. It was just a sibling argument, but it was at the time very serious. And I heard nothing from my sister until the Monday morning we were at the hospital. I'm not going to let people damn my sister. I love her to bits. She will always be my sister. I will never see eye to eye on it. That's all on that, because sometimes you have to put your feelings to one side and go for the greater good, and that is my mum, and always will be. But anyway, Monday sort of came and went. Tuesday was a much better day. My sister turned up. I missed physio. Unfortunately, that was the one thing that did happen, because as much as I told my sister when she left on Monday, my lunch is normally 1 till 2, but physio is 12:30 on Tuesday. She turned up at 1 o'clock. Now, I did look at that at the time as another knife in the heart. You just don't want to help me, you know. But at the end of the day, you could look at the benefit of the doubt and say, a mistake. It is generally 1 o'clock till 2. She came along, by the way, with her husband, and we got on really well. I thought he was going to go ballistic at me. He actually came along and he basically said, you know how your sister is, you need to, not only has she got to change, but you've got to change. You've got to be less sort of like stressed at certain things. And I said, it's very easy to say that, but I did explain to him that my sister has a life and I don't. When she leaves here, so if she comes at 1 o'clock and she leaves at 4 or 5 o'clock, she has a life. When she goes home, she can put the telly on, put her feet up, make the dinner, have conversations with you, Paul, all of that. I'm not. Every half hour I'm checking my mum, I'm getting the dinners, I'm washing up, I'm doing the washing, I'm doing the drying, etc., etc., and even getting my mum into bed before I fall to bed myself, and then it's work the next day. Whichever way you look at it, it's that whole old homage of out of sight, out of mind. My sister will think that she's doing exactly the same amount of work as me, but it's not, because I'm from the very start, when I wake up in the morning, till the very time I shut my eyes and go to sleep, here. And all the way through this, I'm looking after my mum. You will see during this blog that we're now 30 odd minutes in, and I will need to pause and go and see my mum, and that's how it is. And it will be like that now through this whole blog and probably for the foreseeable future. But to speed things up, he said he would go away and try and point this out to my sister. And from that moment on, things have been cordial. So that's the good news, yeah? So we'll move to Wednesday. Wednesday's a much better day. You know, my sister turned up at, 1 o'clock. I managed to go for a walk. I did some shopping. But my mother was sort of like constipated, probably due to that bruising and us trying to get her to eat bigger meals. And so we needed to get some very strong laxative, and it took time for it to go through her system. This was rather unfortunate because it was also the Wednesday that I'm doing my special 50th episode with Ian the Hill, the Ramblings. And this constipation problem continued until the very, very last minute at 5 to 8. In fact, my sister went away that evening, in the afternoon, and had to come back 20 minutes before me going live with Ian to help clean my mother up and get her comfortable. The good news was the laxative did its thing, and at 5 to 8, she was feeling a lot better. So Wednesday came along, and I had a great time on Wednesday with Ian. We did our James Bond and 50th episode special. Fantastic night, really relaxed me, made me feel important again, and made me feel like I was collaborating and talking with people on a hobby that I really like. So that was fantastic. So I'm going moving very quickly now, just because I'm conscious of the time. But Thursday came and went, and the only thing that happened on Thursday that I didn't like was the occupational therapist person that I talked about on Monday. One of the nurses turned up very early in the morning, along with the nurse, without actually telling us that this person was coming. So in other words, the nurse comes in, and following behind her is an occupational therapist, there to assess the equipment situation in my house at 10 to 8 in the morning, right? With the occupational health person wanting me to help with my mum, a cat round my ankles, and this therapist lady asking me loads and loads of questions. Wrong thing to do. You should have you need to book an appointment. The other thing is looking at this from another perspective. You're asking me questions without my sister being there. My sister's got an equal right to be there and understand what the questions are being raised. So I was explaining it to this lady. I said, I really don't like the fact that a person can just turn up. And I know that isn't her fault, but I think her department need to go away and take a deep think about how they handle things. And the thing was, with it such a chaotic morning, she went away, and I still don't know what the outcome was. Am I getting a bed? Am I getting a chair? No idea. No idea. And I didn't know until Friday. So Friday comes along, right? This is where things are starting to pick up a little bit better. In this time, we've got a new chair turned up. We've got the latch for the door that stops my mum going up the stairs turn up. My sister's now cooking food for my mum, and she brings some stuff around Friday lunchtime to give to my mum for meals, to help with evening meals. A little bit of assistance instead of me cooking it from fresh myself every day. And the occupational therapist rings up and says a bed is coming. And the good news is they will help me move the old bed back upstairs, which is not part and parcel of their job. They will do it in this situation. So, good news, good news, good news. Yeah? And that takes us to Saturday, where I'm prepping the blog. My sister comes and looks, sees how my mum is for, how she is for the day. My sister, my mum has a full big dinner for the first time. I mean, we're talking braised steak with an onion gravy, broccoli, roast potatoes, right? All of this on a huge plate. She ate a lot. Absolutely fantastic. And the only thing is that she had a stomach ache at the end of it that lasted pretty much all afternoon. And the only thing I could say about Saturday was I was so tired. The tiredness has gotten to me. It's now to the point where I'm starting to feel I've got a cold. So I'm starting to feel unwell myself, but I just need to get some sleep. I know that if I got sleep, I'd be in a much better situation. And that's pretty much the week. As you can see, it's all been about my mum. It starts off bad, it gets better, and there's a light that looks like a normal practice type thing happening for the first time in ages. I don't think I've missed anything out. There's a lot to take in there. And I just want to say to everybody, all during that, I was doing my own thing in regards to YouTube where I could. People were texting me and asking how my mum was, giving me full support. And I just want to say a big thank you to all those people. It's not been easy. Not been easy by half. But every single time I got a nice message, I basically was so appreciative of it. And I'm so sorry that the beginning is like 40 minutes long, but I needed to get a lot of the information about my mother out there to make or assist with helping people understand when this does happen to you, stay there, stay in there. There's help. There's a light. People will support you. And from that point of view, you've got to be appreciative of it all. So even the nicest little one-liner that I'm going to be talking about in the comments, I'm very appreciative of. So I'm just going to quickly check on my mum now, see if she wants a cup of tea. It's been 40 minutes. I dare say she'll feel her throat's been cut. And then I'll be back and we can continue. So salute, back in a second. Thanks so much. Back in a second for you. Back in a moment. There we go. And what was seconds for you was minutes for me. And my mum's very comfortable, got a cup of tea, cat's been fed. But as time moves on, I'm conscious that the occupational health nurse, the second one, will be coming, I don't know, anytime in probably the next 35 minutes, I would think. And therefore it's going to be probably bitty from now on. But we get to the bits which is like my normal blog. And it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable, and I can talk to you guys and gals about, the week and the comments and all the rest of it. So we'll move straight on into the shout-outs. And just, as always, just want to say thank you to everybody that's left a comment and to anybody really that watched and has been watching through all of these blogs. As I said at the very beginning, what's this? This is the 163rd blog. And we've been through so much together. And it is together. It's a collaborative thing, really. I always looked at it as being that way, even though I'm talking to a camera. It's very therapeutic, actually, to do that. But I'll just get the shout-outs out of the way. They're not in any particular order. But here we go, and all of these people have left a comment in the blog. This is the main blog. There are other comments that are in other videos that I do, but these are the blog ones. No order. Steve's Gaming, Ian Hill The Ramblings, Jambon, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, Martroid, Robert's Retro Gaming, Tony York, Rezgan64 and Steve Malls. Every single one of them. Sorry, it's reading my chicken scratch. It's nothing to do with anything else other than reading my own writing. But every single one of those, thank you so much. It's really appreciative. And, it's very difficult in these days, to maintain a momentum of getting people to comment and so forth. And I have to sort of look at it and go, hey, maybe I'm doing okay. People are watching. People do want to know what's going on. There's some news in here that people might want to know about, etc. I've done the very best I can to keep a quality as best as possible. I've kept going in regards to equipment. I've kept fiddling with different things to try and keep things like volume levels up on the mic and all that sort of stuff. It's very difficult. The more things have happened in my life, the less time I've got to spend tweaking. But I'm hoping I'm getting a balance there and it's working. And there's been very little time for me to relax and play games, but I've tried to do my best. and I'll keep trying to bring out more content. You may remember last week that I talked about trading cards, and I said that I was thinking about doing some openings. Well, look what's come. Look, if I go to the overhead cam, I said I was ordering some trading cards. These have come from America. Here's some trading cards that I'm going to do some openings on. So it's all in hand. These are the Marvel Annual 2020... 223, I think. So it's an older set. Yeah, 2022, 2023 Upper Deck Marvel Annual cards. And just so you know, it's not one, it's 3 boxes of them. And that's just to bring some additional sort of like content to the channel, and sort of like also indicate to my nephew and nieces that as much as I loved comics, I was buying statues, all sorts of stuff, and trading cards was big to me. And that whole industry has moved on by a good 20-30 years and is now probably totally unrecognizable to me. So it'd be fun for us to go through those and see what you get and whether it's worth it in this sort of like modern era. Back then, I never even thought about it. So, you know, you can see I'm constantly thinking about doing something different. So that's all to look forward to. So I hope you stay with me. So with that, I'm going to move into the comments. I'll just have a little sip and we'll do the comments. And they're in no particular order. And the very first one is, it looks like a very bittersweet one. It's actually Steve's Gaming. He's rarely at the top. He's actually turned up at the top this week. And it's got, "Hi Dell. I'm so sorry this is the shortest comment ever. I hope you and your mum are managing things and she's feeling okay. All the best, my friend." And it is bittersweet because there's more news that I need to give about Steve's Gaming a little bit later on. So I won't talk about it in this particular section, but it is very, very sad. But we'll talk about, we want to see if we can elevate ourselves into a much happier area. So we'll move on from that. And from my point of view, it's salute, my friend. Please stick in there. Please have a greater weekend as you possibly can, and know that there are a lot of people out there that love and respect you and want to help. And I'll say no more on that at the moment. And we will move on to Ian Hill, the Ramblings, who I talked about earlier, and we managed to get a good Wednesday in this week. So, let me just check my phone, because as you know, if it's anything about my mother, I need to keep in with what's going on. No, just standard messages, so that's fine. That's good. But I have to keep checking. It's very important in case anything's going on with my mum. So we get to Ian Hill, like I said, and he's put, "Hi Del Boy. I hope that things have settled down in the best way that they can. It's been a difficult time for you and your mother. I just wish you and your mum all the best. I think carers should get more recognition in society. It's a job often done out of love and necessity. I remember when I looked after my late wife, the rate for carers allowance was not very high, showing how it's not given the recognition it should get. Many carers do it without any financial support like you do, yet people who have no business being in our country are given financial help. There is something wrong with a government who does not put its own citizens first." Yeah. Not going too deep into that, but yeah, I'm in agreement with that. But then again, my situation has changed, so the sort of like walking the tight line of, yeah, but look at it from this perspective, sort of goes out the window when it's happening to yourself. So yeah, that always happens though, doesn't it? I enjoyed our James Bond live chat to celebrate 50 episodes. Despite everything going on, I was impressed in how well you did in making it a success. You still was able to make me laugh with a Del Boy rant. Yeah. Anybody that knows that particular Wednesdays knows that I try to make Ian laugh as quickly as I possibly can. And of course, the more things that are happening in my life, the harder it is, but I do the best I can. I don't think it's any secret, but I'm a big fan of James Mason. I watched Spring and Port Wine, a 1970 film, and what another great performance he gives. The cast is great and included Diana Copeland, Rodney Bewes and Susan George. I love the film so much. I did a review for my channel. It will be up on Monday. It was filmed in Bolton and there were so many reminders of my childhood in Leeds. I remember going to the sweet shop. I loved all those jars and the penny tray with boxes open full of little chocolate bars. That wonderful smell. I'd have my pocket money, a little I would save, but I always wanted to spend it wisely and get the most I could. So my question this week is, what were your favourite sweets from your childhood? All the best to you and have a reet grand time. Wow, what a great little question, one that makes me think back. So, the street I lived in when I was a really youngster, and I was still a youngster when I moved into this house. So we're talking before 1977. We're talking about the years leading up to when I was 8 years old, walking to school or going to school with a parent to primary school was an experience because you used to go past shops. Less so when I moved into this house. So yes, we did pop into a shop and my mum would have some money in her hand and she'd say, what sweets do you want? And they gave you these little sort of like paper bags, and there would be penny chews and all that sort of stuff. And out of the penny chews, I used to love things like blackjacks and rhubarb and custard, gobstoppers. I never really bought chewing gum. Chewing gum came in many forms. You used to buy it in stick form. You used to buy it in a sort of like a tube, like that looked like tablet-shaped chewing gum, like you get now. Like these gum things like this. But they also came, and what was my favourite was bubble gum sticks that came with trading cards. And these trading cards used to come from the funnies, like Hubba Bubba and all of this sort of stuff. What was I thinking about? Things like the Beano and the Dandy would have like Desperate Dan and all of this. And there used to be a character that was specific to chewing gum. And the chewing gum was like cardboard. And it had actually cardboard trading cards or a comic that was so small that you used to read it, in between your two little fingers. And it was great. And I used to like those because those were sort of like between 2 and 5 pence. And you once the bubble gum had gone, you still had something left. So that was great. I'd always look at the big chocolate bars and go, oh, I'd really like one of those. But we're talking the 70s, and money was tight. So you really had to be a really good boy or a really good girl to get a big chocolate bar like a Mars bar, or at the time a Marathon, which turned into Snickers later on, and things like a Topic or something like that. I might be lucky and get a Curly Whirly. But then we also had all the jars that the sweet counter person would weigh up into what they call quarter pounds. There was a quarter pound, a half pound, or a pound full of these sweets, and you could mix them up a little bit. But they were all done on weight. So, it was a different time, and there was no end of them. There was sherbet drops, there was cola cubes. I'm just trying to think of all the ones that were there. There were some horrible ones that were sort of like a fruit flavour, but in the centre there was a chocolate middle. And that didn't go very well with me, because fruit with chocolate, that wasn't very nice. But ones with sherbet in the centre were quite nice. I remember we had sherbet dib dabs, which was a lolly with a tube that had sherbet in, and you lick the lolly and dip it in the sherbet, and that was quite nice. Used to like those. But the fondness I have for rhubarb and custard and blackjacks, yeah, really did like those. Cola cubes would come pretty close. I did like the £1/4 of cola cubes. There was aniseed drops, all sorts. Licorice. I never really was a big licorice person, I will say that. Even when they did bags of licorice, all sorts, I only used to go for the little button ones that had hundreds of thousands over the top of them. I never really went for the little square licorice things or licorice string. Although I did like what they call bootlaces. They were like raspberry string. Instead of being licorice flavoured, it was like raspberry. And that was quite nice. And they still make those now. I also liked those foam type sweets. In other words, where it was a marshmallow back with a jelly front. And they used to make them in the shapes of hearts and things. And speaking of hearts, we used to have love hearts sweets. Those were rolled up like Rolos used to come in, individual sweets. So you'd have a tube of these love hearts, and they used to have writing on saying, "Be mine forever" or something in them. And I remember my sister loving those. She used to get those all the time. And they used to make sweets that used to come on string that you wore as jewellery. Don't know if they do any of that anymore, But yeah, the penny sweet, I'll always have a fondness to the penny sweet. And I can't quite remember that far back where you used to get 4 of these chews for a penny. So they were a 8p. I do remember them being halfpence at one stage, where you could get 2 for a penny. But I don't remember can't remember that far back where you bought 4 for a penny. A halfpenny, I think they used to call it. But I'm sure I was around when that happened, because decimalisation happened at the time where I was 4 years old. So yeah, I would have been around at that. So I hope that fills in your answer for you. So many sweets to think of, so many ones there I've mentioned and probably destroyed the name of, but Curly Whirlies will always be a big one for me. Yeah, they were great. Look all these up, by the way, you Americans or people of a certain age, because sweets have changed drastically, over the years, and the old style sweet shop is now sadly almost gone. We've still got one in my hometown. You can actually go in and there's still the jars, and you can get them, sweets measured up. It's not the pick and mix that took over in Woolworths. It was before then. But they're still around. And salute, my friend. Thank you so much. So we'll move on to the next one now. Thank you as well for Wednesday. Brilliant time. And we move on to Jambon. My friend Jambon. I haven't heard from him for a while, but I know that he watches. It's always good to get a comment from him. And he's put, "Hi, Del. How are you diddling? Sorry to hear you've had a tough week, and I do hope things are improving with you and your sister." And they are, matey. Thank you so much. All families have their ups and downs. My sister-in-law is a nightmare, but that's another story for another day. That's pretty much how I want to put it. it sounded so bad last week, but I did mention there that I said, look, these blow-ups tend to, they can be good. It was all a release valve of stress. And no judgment from me on my sister. She did what she needed to do. The only thing that I've got that I've already mentioned is, at some point you have to look at yourself and go, you were in the wrong for certain stuff. And if you don't believe that, then that's where nothing, you're like Teflon, nothing sticks. You know what I mean? It's and I'm not that sort of person at all. Sorry, I've not been around for a while. You continue. Life has kicked me in the nuts a bit too lately. I haven't had as much time for YouTube and gaming, but I have been getting back into books and TV. These days I'm liable to fall asleep during a film. Well, welcome to my world. I have a question, if that's okay. Just wondering what you think of the current state of Netflix or other subscription services you've signed up to. Are there any you're thinking of ditching? I currently have Netflix, Arrow and Mubi and love them all, but there's not enough time to watch everything, so I'll probably have to abandon at least one. Yeah, I'll answer that in a minute. And I just want to say, I don't know if it's up there anymore. No, it's not. Thank you very much. I did say thank you for the book, and I've started to read that. I've got about 6 or so chapters in, and it's very interesting. It was a Stephen King book you gave me for Christmas. So I've started to do a bit of reading. But your question about subscription services and my feelings on them, it's quite a long one, really, but I'll try and keep it short. And that is that I've always been a big physical media, but streaming is something that you can't ignore and is there, especially when you've got a Sky subscription. And we've always had a Sky subscription for the longest period of time, should I say. Not always, but for the longest period of time. And we've still got it now. And with that Sky, you get some other little bonuses, like we get Paramount Plus for free. So with that Sky, I get Paramount Plus. Everything else around it is bought. Prime is something that I've had for a while because I buy so much from Amazon. Yes, I am one of those people that basically are guilty, maybe, for high street's decline. But, it is one of those things. It's very difficult sometimes to get into town. And the high streets adapted slowly, but when they did change, they changed radically. And they started to head all the shops out into little shopping blocks outside of town. So you no longer were going in the high street. You were choosing which sort of like outskirts shopping centre you were going to go to. And they were always furniture ones that are there. So if I go to one of the sort of like outskirts shopping things, there's a big Tesco near me. And right next to that Tesco is this little shopping outlet. And in there's a gym, an Iceland's, a Curry's / phone store. There is a bedding shop, a rug shop, carpet store, furniture store, a Pizza Hut. Trying to think now, what else is there? Boots, Marks and Spencer's. It used to have an electrical store like a Tandy, but that closed down. And a pet home store. And that's it there. So people that go there generally go there because they want a new sofa or rug or something. And then they'll go to the other outlets just because you might as well make a morning of it or an afternoon of it. So, yeah, when you got Amazon, you can search for all of that in one website. So, yeah, it is like that a little bit. But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit here. We're not talking about shopping outlets. So we get Paramount, and Prime would be the next one. So the only other thing really therefore is Netflix and Disney, for which I've got both of those. Disney, because I got it with EE, with my mobile phone, which means that the only thing I've really bought that's because I've wanted it is Netflix. So if I cancel my phone agreement, Disney would go. If I stopped buying from Amazon, Prime would go. If I cancelled Sky, Paramount would go. But those all came with those. So I suppose I've been kind of fortunate that those things were needed. And that's why I've got so many of them. And you're quite right. You never get to watch the damn things. I don't anyway. I fall asleep or whatever. I couldn't keep up with it. But if I ditch one, then the one that's going to be ditched is probably Netflix, because the rest come with stuff that I've got because of necessity. Like I need a phone. So the phone, as I said, gives me Disney. So, of course, that wouldn't be going. Unless, of course, I change provider. So that answers that, really, in regards to what I've got. And when it comes to my opinion of them, to be quite honest, it's all to me about the quality of the picture and sound. And that's where I have a disagreement in the fact that they're nowhere near as good as physical media. But do they have a function? Do they have a service? And the big answer to that is yes. Gone are the days where mothers would sit their kids in front of the telly so that they can watch children's TV while the mum got on with the washing up, the hoovering, ironing and everything else. So they've become a necessity, and instead of putting a tape in, you're now watching digitally. I dare say it is what it is. I do think that they offer quite a bit of a variety. It's all mixed in with some new stuff. I don't think that they concentrate enough on the new stuff to make it viable for you to think that it's a necessity for you to have it. In other words, Disney concentrate really with Marvel, I think, and Star Wars. It's the home of those two big IPs. And from that point of view, that's why you go there. But most of that stuff will come out in physical media, making it redundant. So you've got to look at these ITVXs and so forth and say, is it really worthwhile? And I think that the jury is out on that one. So I think they offer a purpose. They offer you variety. They're too costly. They really do need to look at the state of play in the world at the moment and drop their pricing to encourage customers to come back. The more they put the prices up, but very, very aggressively try to get your attention on just about every social media platform and everything else, then basically you've got to lower the price, I think, to encourage that. So I will say that. That's all I've really got to say on it, really. So you then continue, take care, mate, and hang on in there. Best wishes for your mum too. And thank you very much, matey. That's really decent of you. I'm going to go and just check my mum now before I continue. Hope you don't mind. I do apologise. It's just I really am conscious of my mum, and I'm very protective of her. So I'll be back in just a moment, as always. And I'm back, and Yeah, there's no occupational nurse yet, but I did take some biscuits into my mum, which I think she was quite appreciative of. So we were talking about Netflix and that, and I think I gave a good enough answer for that. But you've also mentioned here, Jambon, a bonus question, if that's okay. You've put, have you seen Adolescence yet? If so, what did you think? I thought it was the best British programme I've watched in years, if not decades. Take care, mate, and hang on in there. Best wishes for your mum too. I have to say, I haven't seen this Adolescence, but I have heard of it. Like I say, it's one of those things where there's so many things that are being mentioned to me in sort of like the chats that I have with Ian, and just my own watching TV or something, an advert or some snippet will come up, or an alert will come up on YouTube. So of course I do get to know about certain stuff, but I also miss an awful lot about stuff, which is why I'm so glad that someone like you, Jambon's around and mention it, because you could have easily have just, not mentioned it at all and I'd be oblivious to it. In this particular instance, I know of it. Haven't seen it. I wish I could write it down so that I could remember to watch it next time. The difficulty here is will I ever get the time with everything that's going on with my mum? What I will suggest that you do, though, is it doesn't happen to mention what channel Adolescence is on. It's just got, have you seen Adolescence? If so, what did you think? And it's a British programme. So I'm only assuming it's on something like ITVX, BBC iPlayer, Prime. I can't remember which feed it came into on my YouTube for me to remember that. But other people might be interested, so I'm glad that you've actually mentioned it. And thank you so much, my friend. And I miss you loads. And I still hope that we'll meet up this year. I'm hoping that I get some normality that allows me to do that. So, salute, my friend, and I'll move on now to my other friend, Colin Jones, a.k.a. Ponder. And as you know, he's been around from day one. He does his own blog. He's got his own channel. Love him to death. And we're going to listen to see what he's got to say. But my word, that's quite a week. Yes, it was last week, very much so. I can understand full well how exhausting this must be. You then continue. 8 a.m. plus 8 equals 4 p.m. No searching used. No idea if I'm right. Then you came up with the same answer. Hey, no riddle from me. It'll take all ideas, but I will say why they're not practical. You cannot possibly know this before you suggest something. Yeah, that's quite true. Not really much to add this week, except to once again send my best wishes to your mum for a speedy recovery, and to you for the stress you're under, and hoping that eases soon. No, thank you so much, and all of those little things sort of help me no end. My question, you can tell I'm running out of ideas. Do you use an electric toothbrush, and what do you think of them? No, absolutely wonderful. And please, you're not running out of ideas at all, matey. There's a million ideas out there, and it's the nice thing about this is it's not tied down to a particular genre. It's not all about computers. It's not all about movies. It's not all about consoles. It can be about anything. The more you ask me, the more it raises a memory, the more it goes off in tangent. But that's an unusual one about the electric toothbrush. And I have to say, I've had an electric toothbrush now for a good 10 years. I've always had those Oral-B Sonicare type ones. And I've been a big fan of them. Although I always used to think, are they so harsh that they actually can do more damage than good? But because when you clean your teeth with a toothbrush that you control, i.e. you make the decision whether you want a soft head, a medium head, a hard head, and with your own hand you pressure gauge yourself, don't you? you push it against your teeth and you brush hard or soft or whatever yourself. So that's good. The nice thing about technology is with electric toothbrushes, you can now go that much further, can't you? I mean, they've all got now pressure heads, where if you push down too hard, it backs off to even turning itself off. So all of this is good stuff. But they come with mostly round heads now, rather than the square or rectangular heads that we have as standard toothbrushes. Again, technology here indicating to us what is a better way. I've never been able to floss because my teeth are very close together, but so to get the string in between. But I've got a flosser, one of these ones that fires water jets, and it blasts away food debris that's in crevices. So I'm a big fan of technology aiding us. So I'm probably I would say I'm on the pro camp for toothbrushes that are electric. But saying that, I totally get the other side as well. The side that go, oh no, don't do that. Yeah, just get yourself a handmade one. You'll know exactly where you are. So yeah, I do understand that side of things as well. But I'm a big fan, I think, of the electric toothbrush, and they've got a lot of technology in now that I think everybody can see how much of a benefit they are. Thank you very much for that, matey. That's absolutely brilliant. Salute, and please go and look at his channel. He's got some great stuff there. He does some high score challenges in games, and he's got his own blog. And we move to Martroid, and again, it's a very short, sweet one. It says, wow, nice lateral thinking on that brain teaser of Robsdale. You're the man. Thank you so much. No? Nice, short, sweet, fills in just what I need. Absolutely marvellous. And so we'll move to Robert's Retro Gaming, who's the next one in the list. And it's got, good to hear how things are going for you, even though the week has not been the best for you. I hope your sister comes round and you are right to mend faces. You are justified in getting upset, but it doesn't serve your relationship to do that. This is something I have learnt the hard way and I'm still working on. Probably I always will be to some extent, and it's what I was trying to imply, I think, a bit early on. I think you've done it more eloquently than me, Rob. Regarding the woke comments, I just meant that people, especially kids, should have role models on the screen to look up to. People of differing skin colours, gender identities, cultures, etc. And if we old white guys don't care for it, we should be quiet and find something else to watch. Generally speaking, I enjoy TV and films with any sort of hero as long as the writing and acting is decent. Yeah, that's fair enough comment, matey. Everybody's got their own opinion. Nobody's judging. It's nice to get different views. It starts a nice discussion point, so I will say that. Nice work on the puzzle I sent you. I was going to congratulate you on the creative interpretation of the 8s as 4 circles. Then you popped out with the right answer. You did better than me on that one. Oh, well, that's good to know. I keep thinking that my brain's gone to mush, but there you are. Pizza, you say. Homemade is the best. But I haven't done that for ages. Do you make the dough as well? We have a good pizza place just down the road from us. So it's easy to order from there. And it's easy to order from there and walk over to pick it up. No, that's great when that happens. It's a bit further away for me for that. Thanks for your blog, and I hope I hope the new routine settled down and you can move to a new normal. Thank you for your blog, and I hope the new routine settled down and you can move to the new normal that works for you. Your sister and please wish your sister and your mum all the best, and I will, matey. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. And like I say, there's not much more to go now. There's 3 more comments. I'm going to say salute there. And like I say, I do apologise. It's a bit bitty, but I keep hearing the door. So I do need to check the occupational health nurse, because I do need to explain to them about all the changes that have happened from the nurse that was here earlier this morning to the nurse that's come in this afternoon. So I won't be a moment. Like I say, apologies. And literally that was seconds, and there's nobody back to it, occupational health just yet. You'll see the door, I've left the door slightly ajar. So hopefully that won't cause too many acoustic problems. But we'll continue with the comments. Hopefully we can get to the end of those before the occupational health nurse does arrive. And we'll move to Tony York, a big friend of mine, who I've met through Ian Hill. It's amazing how you get all these different people that I've met now through different sources. And Tony has put, after reading Ian's post on Wednesday indicating you were awaiting an ambulance for your mum, it's good to hear that she didn't need to return to hospital, Del. As I've said previously, I know to some extent how very difficult your situation is. After my dad passed away in 2011, I was sole carer for my mum until she passed in 2020. She was on medication for depression from 1990, but thankfully I didn't become too ill physically until early 2020. It's good you have your sister to help. I was doing it alone. But having said that, I was lucky that she could be left alone, as your mum can't be. That must make things extremely hard. Look forward to speaking on a Wednesday chat, Del, when you're able to return. All good wishes for the future. And that's now happened, obviously. And, yeah. Thank you so much for the comment, Tony. We have a laugh. I have a little running joke with you about how your DVDs end up at, not at landfill, but they seem to end up at Ian's house, which is great, because I can't think of a better person that deserves more, because everything you send to him, he will watch. You know, and I know that must be very difficult for other channels, but he legitimately will sit down and go through every single one like a big stack, and that's got to be a skill, because I tell you what, I can't get through the ones I buy, let alone anything else. So we have a little running gag about that, and that's great. You're an administrator on Ian's channel, and you're always welcome here. And you do a great job, and you keep everybody in order, and you know, we just have a fun time. You know, there's nothing that breaks the fun away when you're around, and there's definitely nothing that's made me miserable or upset when you're around. So thank you so much for that. And your plight, it's a sad note. And it's, you know, I mean, I appreciate it and understand it, because it's happening to me. I hope when I raise all these things here that people get a bigger understanding of how much of a hit things are for the likes of us. Because it's not just me. This is happening across the whole of the country. And to be quite honest, staying happy and smiley is one of the hardest things to do, and I try my very best. I'm going to falter. I'm human, and this is where I love the YouTube community, friends old and new, brilliant. And you know, you can't speak to everybody. You know, there are a lot of people that I've known that I'd love to get back in touch with, and that will happen. It's the world changes, and people's opinions change, and people's emotions change, and I've got no doubts in my mind that that's a good thing. and that it's a positive that you keep hold of. So thanks for your words of wisdom there, Tony, and see you next Wednesday, my pal. Thank you very much. And we move now to Salute. We moved to Raisingan that I mentioned before and got his name totally destroyed, and I apologise for that. He's put, sorry to hear of your bad week, Dale. It's a testament to you that you keep the blog going and are remaining positive. As hard as I imagine that is right now, thoughts with you and your mum as always. No, thank you so much. Enjoyed seeing the Marvel cards. It's always nice to see a collection of physical media, whatever form they may take. And like I say, look out for this. I'll be doing it very, very soon. Opening new trading cards. I've not done that in, decades. We're talking decades since I've done that. So, I really thought about that and I decided to take a punt. Why not? As for a question, based on my previous ones, you may have gathered I have an interest in the Japanese side of things, and I know you love comics, but have you any interest in manga, Japanese comics? ? I have quite a lot, mainly in the mid-2000s, but I stopped buying for a while. Recently, though, omnibus editions of older favourites with new translations, nicer covers, etc. have come out, along with some previously unreleased titles translated into English for the first time. I enjoy reading and collecting them, despite the space they take up. And you must have seen by now that omnibuses is something I'm not shy of. I've got over 120 omnibuses, all Marvel, I have to say. But I've mentioned manga before, and I had a set of Akira. They're to someone like you, this will make sense, but probably not to a lot of others. They were more like the Marvel Epic collections, black and white tomb versions of collected editions of the comics of Akira, which was the film, but it was a comic book first. Very unusual to read because you obviously read it right to left, not left to right. So, you start off at the back going forward to the front from our point of view. They were in black and white. They weren't colour. The comics were very, very expensive to try and collect. The epics, as I call them, were easier to collect. And they showed up all the time in the comic stores from people that traded them in for more Western comics. But it was through Akira and manga in general, and people going over to Japan and China, that people brought me back Spider-Man issues from abroad. Now, I've got a number of Spider-Man issues from around the world, and if somebody ever tells me that they're going abroad and they ask me a question, would you like me to bring something back? I always say, bring me back the localized edition of Spider-Man from that country. And Spider-Man had a manga. There was a manga Spider-Man comic that was read from right to left. And they were reprinted by Marvel in the 90s. But before then, you could buy them in a sort of like paperback format that wasn't comic-sized. It was much smaller. It was more like a proper, like, reading Stephen King novel in a way. Still read it from right to left. And it's amazing how the story of Spider-Man translated into manga, because it's a totally different origin story. Just like the live action Spider-Man that came out in the 70s happened. In fact, the Japanese version or manga Spider-Man live action lasted a lot longer than it did the American version that came out from CBS. I think it was CBS, and Nicholas Hammond playing the role of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I've got those. They've not been released on DVD. They've not been released on Blu-ray. There's no physical media in this country of them. But I've got the digital videos of them for me to watch. And I keep an eagle eye out for buying them in this country if they ever get released. And there is writing on the wall that might happen when they finally give the green light for the Americanized live action to be put into physical media. I believe it's just round the corner. So that might be happening shortly, and that's exciting times for me. On a Marvel note you've put, did you see the newly announced beat-em-up Cosmic Invasion that is due for release later in the year? It looks excellent. And I have, but I know it as a game. I don't know if it's a comic. Cosmic Invasion was announced several months ago. And when that happened, I kept an eye on it. And it's coming to Steam, I think, along with gaming consoles. And it's more a beat 'em up in the style of the arcade versions of Marvel, you know, where they did the Avengers and they did the Spider-Man video game from Sega. But obviously it's multiplayer. You can have 3-4 heroes fighting on the screen. It looks very much like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game. And it looks interesting. I hope I do get to see it. We'll see if that'll happen. On a Marvel note, so that was the Cosmic Invasion. You then end with all the best. Sorry, I thought there was another line. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful set of questions there. And I'll do my salute to you. And we move to the last comment, really, which already has answers to Stephen, because it's from Stephen Malls. Purely because I didn't want him to think that I hadn't thought of this already. But he put, I hope your mum gets well, Del Boy. Wouldn't you be better doing your grocery shop online? ? You wouldn't have anything to worry about. Plus you can put a message on there if anything is out of stock. You can ask to have replacements close to what you have ordered. I order from Iceland because it's cheaper. If you spend £40 or more, it's free delivery. All they charge you is the £1.50 for carrier bags. And I've already answered it by saying this is something that has been well considered. And it's something that we've tried. And it never really worked out for us. Not only is the charges quite high at the time that we were doing it or looking at it. Another one would be the pure boredom, possibly, of the person that's waiting for the groceries. Plus, what if the groceries turn up while I'm working? They do generally send a text message to say they're on their way. But, of course, I could be in a meeting. And then it's returned to base and you don't get it till the next day. It is far more complex than that. It's a deep thought one. I've given as many answers as I can, but you're quite right. It's something that you have to consider. And the good news is we have. So there we go. That is the end of the comments. And like I say, I am going to take a little bit of a break. There is only the watching stuff to do now and possibly do some trailers at the end. So I am going to spend a little bit of time with Mum. Because she's in there by herself and I am conscious of it. So I'll be back in a moment and we'll try and rush through to the end. So won't be a moment. And I'm back and, well, it's all go, isn't it, today? Because, I mean, I literally went out the door to see how my mum was and the occupational health person turned up 2 minutes later and it was a new nurse, so I had to show her where all the towels are and where the clothes are and where the commode is and so of course actually about half an hour has gone by since we last spoke, and this is where, like I say, the blog can take hours, but we're still early afternoon. And we've got to the bit where we talk about what I've watched and stuff and, you know, what's arrived during the week. So we're towards the end anyway. And as you know, the more that I've had to look after my mum, the less that I've been able to watch. But I do try and promote my friends' channels and I do try and keep up with their stuff. And I still try and watch the odd thing that comes up in the alert box. So the first bit is watched on YouTube. And as you know, there are really 4 things that I always watch, and that is This Week in Retro, Techmo, Gadget Show, and the Chronologically Gaming. So This Week in Retro, as you know, Neil's Cave, all of that sort of stuff. The subjects were Let's Go Bashing Americans, Japanese Gaming History Unearthed, and Not Popular Enough. They were interesting enough subjects this week. Doesn't want to sound as bad as it is. Let's Go Bashing Americans isn't Let's Go Bashing Americans at all. It's just that there was an article this week where they were talking about the game crash in America of '83 and the fact that they call the British scene, the British Revolution, a scene rather than an industry, which really puts us in Britain our backs up, because it's not a scene. The computer rise is massive. And just because it didn't happen in America doesn't necessarily make it just a scene. We're not insignificant. Our influence was far ranging into Europe and into America. The Commodore 64 was big in America. Just because the console market was bigger doesn't necessarily mean it weren't there. You had the Apple industry. Apple came out of there. IBM came out of there. The Commodore 64. And even our own Spectrum had inroads into America. You can't call it a scene. So I'm fully behind that subject that was going on there. And then we've got the Japanese gaming history, and then we've got the Not Popular Enough. So just bear with me a moment. Bless her, the nurse wanted to say goodbye to me. I thought I'd said goodbye. Anyway, so This Week in Retro, let me get my thoughts back. This Week in Retro was great, and I then usually follow that up with Techmoan, and Techmoan was a subject set that said, can custom CX50 speakers fix the Biosystem 10? Now, this Biosystem 10 was something that happened about a couple of months back, and he noticed that the sound system wasn't particularly good when you hook a record player into it. There was distortion, so he wanted to know if you bought custom speakers, would it fix it? I'll let you watch it if you're interested in that. I always love old tech, so I love this stuff. You'll tend to find that I like looking at old hi-fi equipment and also how to repair stuff, even though I'm not really that good at repairing it myself. I just like to see if my thought processes are the same as the person that was repairing it, because I've got a multimeter and I always do things like check continuity, whether there is a 12-volt rail or a 5-volt rail, and measuring those and following the pads and then along the traces. So I'm familiar with all of that because I did electronics at school. So it just keeps my brain going. The Gadget Show continued an episode of what I talked about last week, where it was the iPhone versus the Android. It was this week, which is Tech Rivalries Part 2. So I'm expecting there to be a Part 3 and that. You remember last week I thought it didn't go deep enough. It looks very much like they're turning it into a series, so that's great. And Chronologically Gaming, as you know, he's been going on and on and on for months now about November 82. It must have been a bumper month, probably leading up to Christmas of 82. And he's finally got to the end of November 82, but before he crosses over into December 83, he's filling in some backlogs of games that were missed, and they were from the 70s, which is great because it means that his list will still be accurate. It's just the videos will be out of sequence a little bit. But it's great because as he's moved forward, probably there have been movements in being able to show off those games because, as you know, the gaming industry continues to increase reliability with cores and so forth. So that's brilliant. So the rest of the stuff is all sort of like new. You may remember that I mentioned about the Switch 2 reveal this week. So I've mentioned here Angry Joe Show plus many more. I didn't just watch things like the Angry Joe Show. This was across the whole board. The Switch 2 reveal caused so much attention that You just have to put in switch to reveal, and you'll see thousands, I should think, of channels discussing Nintendo's strategy, I should think, on the release of this console and the pricing plan. So by all means, don't just look at Angry Joe's show, look at anything else. You just type in switch to reveal. Then there's a channel called Sanir, Sanir. It's an oldish sort of documentary, but it was about Sapphire and Steel, and it was called Sapphire and Steel Counting Out Time. It's a 2007 documentary. But I love looking back at certain old documentaries. Some of them I've seen, some of them I've forgotten about, and some of them I've never seen before in my life. This is one I think I've forgotten. But it was great, because it was great to see David McCallum and Joanna Lumley talk about those times. And, of course, it was with the producer and the creator of the show. So that was brilliant. Watched that. Then yesterday, there was a new documentary that came up on the Elton John channel. Now, you know I'm a big Elton John follower because I played piano in my youth. I've got a keyboard over there. And he's brought out a new album with Brandi Carlile, who I've never really heard of before. But it's being heavily promoted because it came out, I think, Thursday or Friday this week. And they recorded the whole recording sessions like a fly-on-the-wall documentary. So there's this big 50-minute documentary. And the episode was called Elton John and Brandi Carlile, Who Believes in Angels? Stories from the Edge of Creation. So the album is called Who Believes in Angels. And it's very, very interesting because you'll see just how a person like Elton John at 78, I believe he is now, is struggling, to work in a way other than what he knows. And he's been the head of his own band for years and years and years. So working under the constraint of working with someone and harmonizing and all of that is very, very difficult for him, even though he's done it millions of times in duets in the studios and so forth. Very, very interesting. I'm very interested in the album because the very first two tracks are more about him. His love of Little Richard, his first piano star as well that he bought records for in the 70s when he'd become big himself. Because he obviously had people like Little Richard and so forth that he was fans of, but then you couldn't buy albums, if you didn't have enough money. So he followed other artists, and there's one on there that's dedicated to her. And then the very last track is about his death, believe it or not. It's When This World Has Given Up on Me or something, I think the track is called, which you saw him record, and it's a very moving piece. It's absolutely brilliant. I really did enjoy the documentary, not just because it stars, somebody who I followed for years, but just because of the way a studio album is now created, which is so different to how I've seen other documentaries do studio recordings. Then we've got Stu View, who did a video on forgotten British television adverts of the 70s, which was great because there was a couple there that I'd forgotten about. I knew that Ernie Wise and Eric Morecambe did adverts because they did the Atari adverts, but I forgot that they'd done Texaco. And there's a number of others in there about the two Ronnies that I'd forgotten. And I'd forgotten that Ronnie Barker did Seconda watches for years. My God, how could I have forgotten that? My God, they were funny. So, forgot all about that. And then I mentioned this guy last week, Richard Tappenden, who I met on a stream with 20th Century Gaming. And he's continuing his channel with Commodore 64 gameplay. And he was playing Joe Blade this week, along with some pickups. of games and DVDs. And so that channel's going from strength to strength. Absolutely brilliant. It's always nice to see a channel go from strength to strength. So that was what I watched on YouTube. And then there's more the film, TV, and soundtrack stuff, which are, again, some of these will be my friends, and some of them will just be channels. So we start off with Ian Hill, The Ramblings. How can we not? Who I collaborate with on a Wednesday. My God, man, look what you've done this week, you sod. Look, takes up my pad. So here's just a snippet of what he's done this week. Top 5 crime films, 2016 to 2022. Star Trek box sets unboxing. He bought some Star Trek box sets and he's unboxed them. SFX Magazine April 2025 review. Doctor Who Mordrin Undead review. Now, Mordrin Undead is a special one for me. It's one of those Peter Davison episodes that I really, really, really loved, and it was the start of a trilogy. But Mordrin Undead holds a special one for me. I love the music in that one. I love the fact that it goes into Doctor Who lore a little bit. And there's a dilemma where actually I did feel, my God, this could be the end of the Doctor. When I'd watched the end of that episode, I thought that might happen. Interesting. That's a great episode. I love Mordrin Undead. X-Files Season 3 Episode 21 review. More annuals to view. So he's done some more annuals that he's found and done a continuation of an earlier video. And then Live With Me, which was a James Bond special on Wednesday. So, my God, you've got enough there to watch. It would take you all week to get through it. So, there you are, just like it did me. So, we're moving forward, and we've got my friend Pete, Play Tendo Guy. He did a Blu-ray haul. It's typical. It's usually the beginning of the month that you usually get some of these channels showing what they bought in the last month. It's quite good. So, he did a Blu-ray haul and some second sight releases. So that's always good. And he did a Goat Simulator gameplay short. I like the sometimes I like shorts. They work quite well. This one is based on Goat Simulator, which is a game I've played way back in the years. But of course, it's just come out on some consoles and stuff. And sometimes it's just nice to go back anyway. So that's definitely worth a watch. Then you got Mondo Chelovek Movies, who again, like I said, he had a week off, I think, where there was nothing, and then all of a sudden there's some stuff. He did his own pickups, so he showed what he'd picked up through March. So this video was called Pickups 31st of the 3rd 25, but actually it's the whole of March. So that's definitely worth it. He's my go-to guy for horror, and I tell you what, I'm not worthy. The amount of stuff he knows about horror, my God, it's just not worth bloody concentrating on if he doesn't know it. Then we've got my friend Josh, Through the Lens. He did 2 videos this week. He put WTF is Holland, a film review. So what the f is Holland? And then also one called Why Opus Doesn't Feel Quite Right. That was an interesting one. He put some interesting thought into the titles of his videos. Not only that, the cracking reviews. Then you've got Jim Jam Movies, who's now stated he is back. So remember I mentioned that Jim Jam was going to be taking a little bit of time off. Had some things going on in his life that he needed to sort. 3 weeks later, and he's back. And he's done a video, I'm Back video. So that's Jim Jam Movies and TV. Look that one up. And this week I've been listening to some music while I've been helping with my mum. So there's a channel called Louis Benel. So that's Louis, L-E-W-I, and Benel, B-E-N-E-L. And this one is a composer called Georges Delarue, which you might have heard me mention a number of times. Love that composer. 50, 60 years of movie music writing. And he did a film back in 1968 called Interlude, which is one of my favourite records, vinyl, that I've got. of his. And the full soundtrack is on that channel. So you can actually listen to the whole film score. And it made me want to go and watch the film again. I haven't seen Interlude in years. 1968 that film came out. And that's all the stuff from film, TV and soundtracks. And we're now on the final stretch. And we're moving to Game and Tech YouTube. That's all my friends that are in my Discord and in Mainmeister's Discord. And people that I know. And, of course, anything that's related along Game and Tech, really. So we start off with Down the Rabbit Hole. And he did a couple of videos this week. He's put Trying the Worst Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Cowabunga Collection PS5. Entertaining video. Definitely watched that. And like I say, he doesn't pull any punches. Trying the worst, right? There you are. It's in the title, the clue. Okay. And then he's bought in the past, in the last couple of months, chainmail. He's very much into wearing Arthurian sort of like armor, you know. So he's added an Amazon tunic to his chainmail that he bought literally a couple of months back. So that was an entertaining video as well. Definitely worth a watch. Down the Rabbit Hole, good stuff. Definitely have a little look at that. And if you can, subscribe. Great stuff. Robert's Retro Gaming, who you must have heard me talk about even earlier on. He did the following the following videos this week. No Man's Sky episodes 31 to 32, Minecraft episodes 135, Arcade Donkey Kong 3, Commodore 64 Blagger, Atari 8-bit Midas Maze and Tetrix, and Craft Mine episode 1. Like I say, Robert's a good friend of mine. He's Canadian royalty. He does all sorts of Atari videos. Absolutely brilliant. Tell you what, the one thing is, I can't remember whether I read out. Yes, I did read out a comment from him. I wondered to myself, did I read out his comment? Makes me wonder, you know, because when you make a blog and it's as bitty as this one, sometimes it's difficult. But all of those videos that I just mentioned out there, I've watched every single one of them, and I tell you what, so enjoyable. And now you've got a new Minecraft series called Craft Mine. So definitely that was interesting. I love that. And now a bittersweet one, because it's my friend Steve's Gaming, who, you know, I always have to do my salutes. You fucking hate you, Steve, you little bastard, fucking hate you, your channel's too good, you know. Because it might be the last time that I'm doing that, and I'll explain why. But first of all, I'll tell you what he's done this week. He started off with a video, Berserk, the quest to beat 5,000. Seems that everybody wanted to show me up with Berserk because I didn't get past 2,000 when I tried to do it. Everybody's gone past that. Everybody, including cats that live in the street, can beat my score. So he did that, and Homesoft Disc 51, which is his continuing series of Atari Homesoft games. Ghost of Tsushima Parts 1 and 2. He started off a new series of role-playing game type stuff. He's done 2 hours worth of content for you to watch. And then the bittersweet one, he did a video out called Thanks Everyone, where he's saying that he's giving up YouTube. And it's because of things that are going on in his life. And it's not right for me to tell you what those things are. I know what they are. But it's very, very upsetting. And I'll tell you 2 things about this. I wrote out virtually an essay on YouTube as a comment on that video. And it disappeared. And I didn't follow my own advice of copying and pasting it into Notepad or anything. But I was in bits watching that video, because nobody likes to think of that being their last video that you're going to see of them when they've been such an influence You know what I mean? Because although he started later than me on YouTube doing videos, his influence is still felt all the way through my blogs. And something quite radical is changing in his life. And to be quite honest, he therefore can't concentrate on stuff. My answer to him, really, in a very short way, and I wrote an essay, as I said, is never think of it always being the end. There are people that want to help, and there are people that are going to be shoulders that you can vent to. YouTube is great for taking your mind off of things, and even if you just come back and do something once a week, it's better than zero. And you will eventually miss it, and then you'll start possibly resenting that this thing that's going on in your life has become so compounded that you start resenting things, and you don't want to do that. And you've always got us as friends to listen to. So I'm hoping it's just another one of those, I need to stand back a little bit, and hope that won't be the end. I'd hate to lose him as a person as well that comments on my blog. I'd like to think that he's going to be still watching. He was part as well of a friend that suggested games to me. I have no idea whether he's going to suggest those games anymore, because, as you said, it's so encompassing, this problem, that he won't be able to concentrate on thinking about a game for me, this sad old duffer to play. So, it's sad news. So if you can, please go over to his channel. Please give him your support. Watch some of the videos. Get some entertainment. Just see how funny he can be. And I tell you what, he's the best person to die in a game ever. And I say that in a very friendly, fun way. Salute, my friend. Bastard. Good, ain't you? Maybe that's the last time I do that. I hope not. Then you've got Colin Jones, aka Ponder, my friend Colin, who's so tech heavy, and we would just get on. I'm sure if we met, we were supposed to earlier this year, but my mum collapsed, so it's one of those unfortunate things. But he did a Cycle Adventure Volume 188 and a Tubers High Score Challenge video for Jump Bug, a roundup, because they do them every 2 weeks, I think. So it's the second week, so it was a roundup. So that was great. Colin, what a great, very, very, very comprehensive fella that you'd learn so much from if you ever did get to speak to him. If you were ever lucky enough for him to have a chat with you, there you are. That's all I can say about him. 20th Century Gaming, my friend Mark, he did a Commodore 64 live of Trolley Wally and ended up at the end playing some Commodore 64 tunes, which is always a fan favourite. We always love to hear the tunes that we listened to as kids, waiting for the games to load, listening to the tunes in the games rather than playing the games because the game was so shit, etc., etc. Brilliant times. So that was a fantastic evening. Took my mind off of things, I can tell you. And then we've got Seb's Place. So salute, my friend Mark, 20th Century Gaming. Seb's Place did 2 videos. He did reviews and play SNES games between the letters N and O. So he's going on in his series, and he's now up to the... just finished the letter O. So he'll be on to P onwards. I've just realised what I just said there. So he'll be on the letter P next, moving forward. And he also did a video called Your Most Hated Commodore 64 Games. Now, I don't have a problem with that particular video, but I tend to shy away from the word hate. Plus, I always tend to find that people that look back at these things look at them without showing the emphasis that it was at the time, or give a reason on why. Because, not to give the game away, but there was a game in there that either should never have been there, or if it's there, it should be so low down because the only reason it's there is because of the control scheme. And that's Whizball, right? Whizball is in some of the most all-time top 10 lists. And if you've got people that you've got in your thousands of subscribers voting and they put Whizball higher up than 5, 5 or above, then you're missing the point. That's just prima donnas that didn't give enough time to the game to get used to it, or just couldn't get their heads around it. But they would have done by now. Do you see what I mean? We've moved past that point. Unusual game controls are now the norm rather than difficult and different back then in the day. So I tend to not use the word hated anyway. And then there are things like that in it that annoy me a little bit. But that's not Seb's fault. He put out a poll, and all he's doing is reading out what the poll result was. So that was interesting. And that's the end of the written part of the blog. Very easy, wasn't it, really? And we'll just do quickly the overhead cam and show you what's come in this week. So here's a steelbook that's just come through, look, which I've been eagerly looking forward to, and that's Nosferatu. Now, you can't see how nice this steelbook is because of the HMV sticker, but I will be doing a series of my steelbooks at some point, right? And I'll show you what these look like in my proper steelbook covers. So there's Nosferatu. Really looking forward to watching that again. I did see it at the pictures. Then there's an old film, The Long Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis. That was a 90s film that I bought the Laserdisc on. I really, really loved The Long Kiss Goodnight. And on the back you can see it's a 2-disc edition, a 4K and a Blu-ray. So that's brilliant. I don't know if I showed Nosferatu's back. There we go. Just in case you want to pause it and look. There we go. Then you got one of these ones in these Warner Brother boxes. I love the way that they present these. So when you open it up, oh, just bear with me. Oh, trying to move things around a bit. Do apologise, but the whole window moved. There we are. There we go. Sorry about that. I moved the mouse. When you open the box up, you've got Inception, which is a great film. It's another one of those Nolan films, Christopher Nolan. Very weird, but the special effects were out of this world when this came out. It's a huge collection. Look, it's a steel book with a booklet in a hard shell. You can see what extras are inside there, lobby cards, all that sort of stuff. Lovely thing to have always in these Warner Brother presentation boxes these days. Absolutely marvellous. Then I've got some things that I haven't got the original covers of, but I have got the films in steelbook format already, but it's great. So there's a Full Metal Jacket steelbook, which was budget. This is a budget steelbook that's come out. So I bought that. That's a great film. Love that. Got another one just like that came out as well, which is a Clockwork Orange, a favourite of mine. I'll buy that as many times as I need. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a lovely looking steelbook. So it's a budget steel, what they call a budget steelbook. One that's not a steelbook at all, but one did really well at the Oscars, and I really like the film. It's called Conclave with Ralph. I'm going to get this pronunciation wrong now. Fiennes. It's Rafe. Anyway, Rafe Fiennes. Anyway, great film. Won quite a few Oscars this year. Brilliant. So glad to have that. Don't understand why it's not in steelback format. And then some sort of like Mondo art type books, steel books, which look gorgeous, of some Tarantino films. So the first one is Kill Bill Volume 1. You can see it's all artwork. Looks lovely. Really shines, that one. You look on the back. It really carries on really nice there. And then you've got, obviously, Kill Bill Volume 2, which follows the same Steelbook artwork. Again, gorgeous looking on the back as well. Lovely steelbook artwork. And then one I've never seen of Tarantino, which is Jackie Brown, blaxploitation film. And I'm looking forward to listening to that and watching this, because Ian Hill, The Ramblings, rates this really highly. And he says he couldn't believe it when I said I've never seen it. He went, "You've never seen Jackie Brown? What's up with you?" And I have to say, that disappointed me that there are films that he's seen that I haven't. And that's the end of that. Now, have I got time to do the trailers? It is just gone over 2 hours. Why not give it a try? So we'll go to media playback and we'll see if I can turn the mic off and you can watch a couple of trailers. Hopefully they won't get copyright strikes. I haven't done this in a long time. And you can see some trailers to stuff that I've bought here or ones I've watched this week. So I'm going to turn the mic off now and you can watch some trailers. Hopefully they won't get copyright strikes. Actually, I just realised I haven't got the right mic mix listed there. So I'll just go back to here and add it in. Which will be... Oh, I'm not sure. It should be... I need to add it in, so you just bear with me a moment. I think it's this one. Just bear with me a moment here. Yeah, it should be there. So I'm going to unhide everything. There it is. Stupid me. I think we're there now. So I do apologise. Let's see if this works now. I do apologise.
You and I are standing guard on one of the last great open spaces. These people think that if they're tough enough, smart enough, and mean enough, all this will be there someday. There's no army of this earth that's going to stop those wagons coming, little as they're wanted.
Get in there, quick. Quick, come on.
It's all right. I'm gonna be with Dad.
No, no, no.
All I'm trying to do is get as many of us as I can, as far as I can.
like to have a drink tonight with someone that knows how to act?
You're not taking the full measure of this, Mary. I know the man I met was on his way to kill everyone in that house. He might as well have been walking up to get the mail for all it bothered him.
What you build, they will burn down.
You use that much this year?
Haven't had much need of it yet.
Looks like we got ourselves a bad man right here.
Come to me. Come to me. Hear my call. Come to me. Professor, my dreams grow darker. Does evil come from within us or from beyond?
It's coming. It is coming. He is coming to us.
He's coming.
Who is coming to you, my child?
We are here encountering the vampire. Nosferatu.
There's one thing you should know about me. I specialize in a very specific type of security. Subconscious security.
You talking about dreams?
Mr. Cobb has a job offer he would like to discuss with you.
Like a work placement?
Not exactly. We create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their secrets.
Then you break in and steal it.
Well, it's not strictly speaking legal. It's called Inception. Already. I think I found a way home. And this last job, that's how I get there. Dreams feel real while we're in them. It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange.
This was your responsibility. We are not prepared for this.
I have it under control.
I'd hate to see out of control.
You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
And there we go. Like I said, apologies for that. I forgot that I was fiddling around with things with gaming audio, that I got rid of the desktop audio for me to show you what the media was. But glad I got that sorted. I wanted to show that the trailers were not totally forgotten. And there's just a couple there just to keep me going. Hopefully no copyright strikes. And I'm hoping that that's entertained you for a couple of hours. You're fully up to date with things that have gone on for me this week. You definitely know where I am with my mum. And I'm looking forward to this week being a little bit more stability. And with that, I'm so sorry that it was bitty, but I hope you got some enjoyment out of it. And thanks very much. Until next week. Salute. Bye-bye.